All right, so the Pythagorean theorem. Now, the formula for this, and you may have seen this before, you might not have. It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, when you use this, the only thing that really matters is that the longest side of the right triangle has to be C. It's the side that's across from the box. That has to be C. The longest side of a right triangle is called the hypotenuse. You might have heard that before, you may not have. The side across from the box, the longest side, that's called the hypotenuse. The other two sides are called legs. And for those, it doesn't matter. You can put either one of them in for A or B. So on one, the side across from the box, the longest side, that has to be C. That 17 has to be C. And the other two, you can use for A or B. Like what I mean, it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You could have x squared plus 15 squared equals 17 squared. Or you could put the 15 first. You could have 15 squared plus x squared equals 17 squared. Now, you just go through and you square the numbers. 15 times 15, or 15 squared, that's 225. 17 squared is 289. Now we want to solve for x, so I'm just going to subtract that 225. $289 minus 225 is 64. We're almost there. X squared is 64. Now, the opposite of square is square root. That's easy to remember because they both have the word square and square root. So to cancel out the square, we square root. That cancels each other out. Base squared is 64, 8. Now, number two, again, across from the box. That has to be C. It's the longest side, it's a hypotenuse. That has to be C. The other two don't matter. Where you put them. So 5 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. Or you could have 12 squared plus 5 squared. Those you can swap. Now, you can just type that whole thing in, 5 squared plus 12 squared. Or if you want to do them out, either way, you'll get 169. And again, the opposite of square, square root. That cancels the square out. Square root of 169 is 13. Now, before we go on to the next one, just be aware, like on the first one, x was on the left side here. So I had to cancel out that 225. But on the second question, x was alone on its own side. These numbers were together, so I added them. So it all depends on where x lands. On 3, okay, even though the triangle's kind of spun around a bit, across from the box, that's got to be C again. So a squared plus b squared, 16 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. Like I said, you can do 16 times 16 and then 12 times 12, or you just type that whole thing in since you're just going to add them anyway. you get 400. Opposite of square, again, square root cancels the square out. Square root of 400 is 20. And on 4, again, crossing box. That's got to be C. The other two, A and B. It doesn't matter where you put which one. X squared plus 9 squared equals 15 squared. You can have 9 squared plus x squared. That's fine. Now, this time, x is with a number, so I'm not going to add anything. 9 squared is 81. And then 15 squared is 225. X has that plus 81. So we're back to where we got to subtract. And we get 144. Take the square root. 12. On number 5, crossing box, that's C. 8 squared plus 6 squared equals, you can write C, it doesn't matter, but the question says X. So I'll use the X. 64 plus 36 is 100. Square root of 100, 10. Now that's how you use the Pythagorean theorem there. As we go on, though, and the reason that we're doing this right after the distance formula, if you don't get a perfect square, like all the answers we just got were nice, neat, whole numbers. They were perfect squares when I took the square root. You might have to do simplest radical form, and this is just what we've been practicing, where you go like 1 squared is 1, 2 squared 4, 3 squared 9, 4 times 4 16, 5 times 5 25, 6 times 6 36. Then 7 squared is 49, 8 squared 64, 9 squared 81, and 10 times 10 100, 121, 144, and so on. Those are all perfect squares. Anyway, crossing the box, that's got to be C. X squared plus 9 squared, they're A and B. X squared plus 81 equals 256. You can just type those in. 8 times 8, 16 times 16. Or excuse me, 9 times 9. Or you can use the square button. Now we gotta actually cancel out this 81. $175. Now this is where you would normally grab your calculator, start, 175 divided by 81. Nope, decimal. Divided by 64. Nope, decimal. And you keep going on till you find that one that works. I mean, we've done this before. But you notice, if you think of money, $1.75 could have all quarters. 25 is a perfect square. 25 times 7 is that 175. So then you can just go 5 radical 7. We've done that part before. Now on 4, x squared plus 3 squared equals, getting ahead of myself, 4 squared. So x squared plus 9 equals 16 minus 9. Yeah, this is a little different. This is actually really easy. Square root of 7. It says simplest radical form, but you can't divide 7 by 4. Nothing bigger than 7 goes in. So that's already simplified. So this is already simplified. I can't divide by any of this stuff. So, you're already in simplest form. It's like if you solve a question earlier in your math career, like in middle school, and you get half, if it says to reduce, you can't reduce it. 1/2 is already reduced. Same thing here. That's already reduced. And I think there's one like that on the delta math as well. But anyway, so here, 13 is c x squared plus 9 squared equals 13 squared. So we got x squared plus 81 equals 169. Now, we're going to minus that 81. Take the square root. This time, we can reduce it down. You grab your calculator, you start dividing. We'll go back up to our list here. We got 88. 88 divided by 81, nope, decimal. 64, nope, decimal. 88 divided by 49, nope, decimal. And you go through, you get decimals, then you hit 4. 4 times 22. Square root of 4 is 2. Bring the other one down, and you're done. Now, on number 9 here, just to remind ourselves, if it says to round, like anywhere, we'll go to the 100. I think that's what I did in class. If it says to round, and again, we're changing the instructions just for this last one, because I want to remind you. If it says to round, you're not doing the simplest radical form. You want a decimal. Oops, getting ahead of myself. You want a decimal. This one's even easier. Well, it should be. Just don't let it confuse you. Just grab your calculator. Take the square root of 40. Let me pull up my calculator here. Share it with you. Now, well, you don't want to do that right there. That's something else I'm doing. But oh, hey, look, it's already right there. Anyway, just to remind you, the square root button's above x squared. You got to hit second first. Square root 40, hit enter. 6.324555. So we get 6.324555, so on. Oops. You don't even need those last numbers. It says round to the hundredth. Tenths, hundredths. Oh, there we go. This is where we're going to round. We're going to cut it off. But don't forget, I look at the 4. Look at the 4. It's not 5 or above, so I'm not giving the 2 a shove. 6.32. Round. On the delta math, it says like round to the 10th or round to the 100th if necessary. Don't do any simplest radical form. Just grab your calculator, take the square root. If you get a whole number, good. If you don't, you got to round it. On the ones on the delta math that say simplest radical, that's when you got to do all of this stuff right here. Hope that helps.